Hey, this is Jordan Plosky, the co-founder and CEO of Zoop, and you're listening to the True North Country Comics Podcast.
Welcome to the True North Country Comics Podcast, dedicated to promote Canadian comic book and graphic novel creators and supporters. I'm John Swinimer. On this episode, I chat with Jordan Plosky about his company, Zoop. This podcast is available on Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts and YouTube. Please like and subscribe to that video channel and hit the notification button. If you want to help the site and the podcast, please consider supporting the effort by chipping in at ko-fi.com/True North Country Comics. Your patronage is greatly appreciated. Based in Los Angeles, California, Jordan is the co-founder and CEO of Zoop. Previously, Jordan was the founder and CEO of subscription-based digital comic startup Comic Blitz. That was acquired in 2018 and rebranded as Con TV Plus Comics. Zoop was conceived by Jordan and Eric Moss, who's a co-founder and COO, in the summer of 2020. After enlisting CTO Marvin Oswald to head up development, Brett Schenker to handle in-house marketing, and Camilla Zhang, former comics outreach lead at Kickstarter, to advise on customer experience, they launched a new platform, Zoop, in June 2021, to much critical acclaim, and continue to run campaigns on it for comic projects and beyond. Richard Pace is just one of the many Canadian creators using Zoop for their projects. Coven is Richard's current crowdfunding effort with Zoop, and you can discover more about that campaign at zoop.gg/c/coven, C-O-V-E-N. And so, without further ado, here's my chat with Jordan Plosky about his company, Zoop. Jordan Plosky, thank you very much for taking time to chat with me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me on.
Appreciate your time. Before we get started with all the questions, I want to ask you, if you remember, what was the first comic book that you read?
I get this question a lot, and I never really... I don't remember the very first one. I know I read a lot of Archies when I was a kid, so Archie digests are definitely in that mix. I remember going to, we wouldn't call it the newsstand, we'd call it the candy store. My dad would take us to the candy store, and there would be a spinner rack there. I remember some early G.I. Joe comics. But the answer that I typically give is, even it might not have been the first comic, but it was the one that really spoke to me the most when I was a kid, was The New Warriors. I don't know if you're familiar with The New Warriors from like 1990, 1991, but that, to me, that's the comic that changed everything for me. So even though Archie's might have been first, New Warriors is first in my heart.
Yeah, definitely two different type of genres going there, that's for sure.
Yes.
That's cool. Well, good stuff. Well, I'm talking to you because you're the co-founder and CEO of a company called Zoop. Now, for those who don't know what it is, can you tell us more? What is Zoop?
Absolutely. If you're listening to this podcast, and you're probably familiar with Kickstarter. So the best way to put it is that we are a full service competitor to Kickstarter. So what does that mean? If you're going to run a crowdfunding campaign for your comic, for example, you have to kind of figure out your whole strategy and budgeting. You're going to take time out of your workday to put your campaign page together, figure out what your rewards are. You also have to now figure out how you're going to promote this campaign. If your campaign is successful, now you actually have to go into production on your product. Most likely a comic book, maybe some stickers, art prints, things like that. And then the biggest holdup that most people have when it comes to crowdfunding is fulfillment. That's getting all those packaging materials and actually sending out, hopefully, hundreds, maybe even thousands of packages all on your own. So what Zoop does is we are a platform like Kickstarter, except we provide a suite of services that covers everything I just listed. So for creators who are, looking to put something out, but potentially don't have the time to do it all themselves, we're a built-in team. We handle all of those things, including retailer outreach as well. So, John, I know you and I kind of connected because you have, Richard Pace, or you have some sort of connection to Richard Pace, who currently has a campaign running on Zoop right now. And for someone like Richard, he's working in comics full time. He has his book Second Coming that he's doing. He maybe has other freelance work or commissions or covers that he's doing. So on top of his regular work to run a crowdfunding campaign, he may have never done something like this, but because he has us handling all that heavy lift for him, that kind of lowers the barrier to entry for him and allows him to run this crowdfunding campaign at the same time as keeping up, his regular freelance and, independent contractor type work.
Now that's pretty cool. That's a great service, that's for sure. Did you see that there was a hole in the market, and that's why you came up with Zoop?
Yeah, so I always say Zoop is a pandemic baby. When the pandemic started, I had a day job and hours were slashed and we're all stuck at home in quarantine, right, John? I mean, my mental state was not wonderful. And I decided I needed something positive to focus my energies on. I needed like a creative outlet. And it turned out I started a business. That was my creative outlet. I got together with my co-founder. His name is Eric Moss. He actually was at IDW Publishing for a while. He had run some Kickstarter campaigns for them. He had worked at Cryptozoic Entertainment, who does some board games and other things and ran Kickstarters for them. And most notably, Eric was the campaign manager on the Berserker campaign, which up until recently was the highest grossing crowdfunding campaign for comics ever, until it was just taken over by Good Omens. He and I got together on a phone call, just trying to like see what's going on out in the world. And this was at a time, if you recall, Diamond still had a monopoly on comics distribution. And during the pandemic, Diamond was forced to shut down. Retail stores were forced to shut down. Simultaneously, AT&T had purchased Warner Brothers, who at that time slashed the DC Comics publishing output by 25%. Now, what all of that meant was fewer and fewer opportunities for creators in traditional publishing. Now, you look at the other side of the aisle, e-commerce exploded 10 years growth into, 5 months, 6 months, something like that during the pandemic. And Kickstarter and crowdfunding was also a part of that boom. You saw more and more books coming out and just year over year growth in crowdfunding. But we took a look at it and we saw it's like, wow, it's hard to do. If you're a writer, if you're an artist, if you don't have a tech background, if you don't have a business or a finance background, figuring out how to do some projections, figure out how much you're supposed to charge for shipping. And this is all work that you need to do before you launch a campaign. Essentially, you either have to do it all on your own or you have to pay people to help you. The problem with paying people to help you do it is sometimes you have to come out of pocket to pay those people, right? They're not going to do it out of the kindness of their heart. They're not going to wait until a potential successful campaign. They need to get paid for their time. And that's on top of, paying yourself potentially, like trying to make some money off this crowdfunding campaign. Potentially, if you're the writer, now you have to pay an artist. If you're an artist, maybe now you have to pay a colorist, a letterer. There's all these expenses, and trying to figure out you're essentially an entrepreneur, right? Like you're going into business for yourself. You have to wear a lot of different hats, and it's just not for everybody, right? Some people need that support, and we kind of saw all these things. We're like, hey, crowdfunding is great, but what if we did all these things to kind of make it better and easier? And that was really the impetus for Zoop, was like saying, hey, instead of like tacking on our services to an existing platform like a Kickstarter and being beholden to them, let's just do the whole thing. And that we got to work. We started building it out, and we've been live a little over 2 years now.
That's great. That's terrific. Now, is Zoop only for comic book creators?
No, actually, and thank you for asking that. I mean, right now, because of, like I mentioned, my co-founder's background coming from IDW Publishing and, working in comics for a while, Zoop is my second startup. I had another startup called Comic Blitz, which was essentially the Comixology Unlimited model, and we started working on that before Comixology Unlimited. So I was licensing content from a bunch of different publishers. So we both have a comics background. So it was easy enough to reach out. And the fact that like the comics category in crowdfunding is one of the fastest growing, one of the most active categories in crowdfunding, it made sense to start here. However, we've done a tarot card campaign. We did a campaign for a puzzle. We've done traditional publishing. And we are having conversations about other categories as well. We're certainly starting in comics, and the majority of our campaigns are definitely comics and comics adjacent. However, we have a broader purview for what we just call like the Comic-Con audience. So games, toys, statues, video games, cosplay, anime, manga, film, anything that's sort of related to our geeky little corner of the universe, those are the things that we want to work on.
Okay, cool. Now, you've mentioned already Kickstarter, and some people would say, there's definitely, it's been around for a while, and that might be the go-to choice. But why would people choose Zoop over Kickstarter? What makes it a better choice?
Yeah, well, I don't know how entrenched you are in like what goes on an almost daily basis in crowdfunding, but lately there's a lot of changes that have been happening that are making it harder and harder for people to actually get their comics funded on Kickstarter. Number one is there seems to be more competition than ever before. There's a lot more creators who are running campaigns, and God bless them. I mean, I believe in crowdfunding. I think that's a good thing, but you are certainly competing, for the same dollars potentially. So I saw a stat today that there's like 300 live campaigns just in the comics category on Kickstarter today. To get through all of that noise is incredibly difficult. And I think we all know that one of the problems is Kickstarter does not promote any of these campaigns. They'll choose, a handful out of those 300 campaigns and slap a Project We Love badge on it, which means you get visibility on the homepage for, I think, 48 hours or something like that. But that's it. You're essentially responsible all on your own, to promote that campaign and bring users in. At the same time that that's happening now, and so feel free to cut me off at any time, but at the same time that's happening, where there's more and more campaigns that are running on Kickstarter, you're also seeing an attrition of people on Twitter. And Twitter used to be like the best place to promote your crowdfunding campaign. And people are more and more frequently making comments on Twitter. Like, I feel like I'm just shouting into the void. Nobody's seeing my posts. The algorithm's changing. I'm not getting the engagement I used to. And to be honest with you, the same conversation was happening about Facebook, about a year and a half, 2 years ago. So the problem to me with Kickstarter is you're on your own. You have to do all those things that we already discussed, and you also have to find your own audience and promote to that audience. One of the major benefits of working with Zoop is that we promote every single campaign. We have an email list, which regardless of whatever happens with all the social media platforms, we have an email list of tens of thousands of people that are comic focused, that are comics fans, that have signed up for Zoop, that have purchased on Zoop, that we can target for you, as well as, every other campaign that gets run on Zoop. So promotion is certainly, one of the biggest things, and I think it's going to play even more of a factor going forward. In the past day or two alone, I've seen, reports of Twitter potentially being bought back by, Elon's financiers. I don't know how true that is or not. But if something like that happens and the algorithm continues to change and people really can't use Twitter anymore to promote, how are you going to get the word out? Just launching a campaign on Kickstarter is not enough. You need to be able to cut through the noise. So, the benefit of coming to Zoop is big fish in a smaller pond. You get the promotion, you get the visibility on the homepage, and you get the support. All of that helps. If I had to bet, the thing is, email is king when it comes to crowdfunding. And if we have that built-in email list that we're able to tap into for every campaign that we run, that's a huge benefit. And that's no additional costs to anybody. You don't have to pay extra for that. You're not giving us a higher percentage of your campaign for that. You have someone else who is invested in your campaign with you to support it, help spread the word. And look, you can see one of the things that I've noticed is, I know Kickstarter overall has like roughly a 40% success rate. What that means is only 40% of all campaigns actually reach their goal. Now, to their credit, the comics category is much higher. I think it's like 72%. We're sitting at around 87, 89 in that area. Wow. 87 to 89% success rate. And that's because of the additional support that we offer. It's because of the advice that we offer. It's because we let people know, hey, you might not be ready to launch this just yet. Why don't you go collect another 25 or 50 signups? Because a lot of that legwork has to get done before you launch. With Kickstarter, they would just be allowed to go launch it, without knowing like, hey, we'd be better off if we waited a week or two, right? Just having that human element, that human touch, because like 99% of these comic creators don't even have a point of contact or someone to talk to at Kickstarter. We're here in communication with every one of our campaigns. Yeah, for all those reasons, John, I think we just make a better mousetrap.
Okay. No, that makes sense for sure. Now, this is coming out of left field, but I've been asking creators about the use of AI in comic book creation. So I wanted to get your take. Do you think that AI is helpful or harmful to comic book creation?
Specifically to comic book creation, I think it's harmful. We could have a broader conversation about AI in general in society. I feel that there are more pros in the general area for AI, but specifically like when it comes to the arts, I don't want to say the definition, but the whole premise of AI is based on using other people's art. There's no getting around that. You know what I mean? Like there's no AI is essentially a database filled with existing art and taking that existing art and making something else out of it. But the problem with that clearly is you're not getting anyone's permission. I don't know, John, if you saw, like, if you're a big Twitter guy, but if you saw, there's a couple of panels, like Batman panels that someone put up a few days ago on AI, and it was clearly like ripping off Mike Allred and Brian Bolland. And everyone looking at that is like, well, you didn't do anything. You didn't create anything. You just, spoke something into a prompt and said, draw the Joker the way that Brian Bolland would draw the Joker, essentially. And that's what you get. So there's no creativity to it. There's no years of honing your skill, in order to actually become a great artist. Like I can't see someone who uses AI calling themselves an artist. You're not. You haven't spent time perfecting a skill or a craft. When it comes to artistic things, comics in particular, no. Yeah, it's basically by definition theft of millions of other people's work.
Well, I appreciate your viewpoint. Thank you for your input on that. There you go. So just to wrap it up, where would people go to find out more about Zoop? Where they go online and maybe social media?
Yeah, so on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, probably even on like Snapchat and TikTok, and even YouTube, we are at We Are Zoop. So all of our social media handles are the same. It's at We Are Zoop. And if you need to email us, it's hello@wearezoop.com. And of course, the website itself is, bear with me here for a second, it's www.zoop.gg. Not zoop.com, zoop.gg.
Thanks to Jordan for the chat. You can discover more about Zoop at zoop.gg and on Facebook, Snapchat, and other social media platforms at We Are Zoop. And thanks to you for listening to the True North Country Comics podcast. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to and like this podcast on Apple Podcasts. And check out TrueNorthCountryComics.com website. True North Country Comics is now on YouTube. Please like and subscribe to that video channel and hit the notification button. You can follow along at True North Country Comics on most social media sites. Please send your feedback to John at TrueNorthCountryComics.com. And if you want to help the site and the podcast, please consider supporting the effort by chipping in at ko-fi.com/TrueNorthCountryComics. Your patronage is greatly appreciated. Thanks for listening, and come back soon for another episode. Bye for now. True North Country Comics Podcast is copyright True North Country Comics, copyright 2023.